My Confederate friends call me Miss Jenny or Miss Ginger. I come from a wealthy and well-respected Memphis family. My father, R.S. Moon, was a businessman. I had a lovely childhood growing up here in Memphis. I had brothers and sisters, one of whom you may have heard, Lottie Moon, who became a famous missionary to China. As I was growing up, Papa always wanted me to be a strong woman and not a little weakling, so he taught me how to ride well and shoot straight. Papa even gave me a little pearl-handled pistol, which I called Little Ginger. Little Ginger got me in and out of more trouble than I care to speak of at this time. When I was 17, my parents sent me away to school up north to Oxford Female College in Ohio. While there, I read newspaper accounts of the gunboat battles in Memphis and how the Yankees had overrun the city. Well, I was very distressed. I wanted to go home. I walked into the dean's office, asked if I could go home. He said, no, the war was no concern of mine. I didn't argue with him. I just marched right out of his office, took out Little Ginger, and shot the stars out of the Yankee flag in front of his office. Pretty soon, I was on a riverboat headed down the river toward home and Memphis. When I got back home to Memphis, one of Papa's friends, Bedford Forrest, was forming a company of men to fight the Yankees. Well, naturally, I asked if I could join up, and he just laughed at me and said war was not for little girls. Later, he would eat those words, because as the war dragged on, he began to depend on women more and more for information and supplies. In 1863, General Chalmers wrote Papa that he and General Forrest needed a woman to travel to Cincinnati, Ohio to pick up medicines, morphine, opium, you know, for the Confederacy, as well as intelligence and dispatches. Oh, I pestered my Papa until he agreed to send Mother and me. We had a perfect ruse. My sister Lottie was living in Cincinnati at the time, so we would visit her. We had a very nice visit with Lottie, and as I boarded the boat for Memphis, I had concealed on my person about 40 bottles of morphine and about 8 pounds of opium, plus some very important dispatches. Well, I also took a small rifle that I wanted for myself, and I stuck it down the back of my dress. One of those Yankee guards must have noticed my rifle, and he alerted Captain Rose, who came banging on our stateroom door and called me an active and dangerous rebel. Again, I had to rely on Little Ginger to get me out of this one. I pulled out my trusted little pistol and poked it at Captain Rose's nose and marched him out of our stateroom. My mother was dumbfounded. Well, that bought me the additional time I needed to dump all of that extra contraband out a porthole. But one of those dispatches just couldn't fall into the hands of the Yankees, so I dipped it in a glass of water and put it in my mouth and chewed it up and swallowed it. All the time, I was thinking about what old Forrest had said about war not being for little girls. Well, the Yankees put Mother and me under house arrest for 3 weeks, but had to let us go because I distracted the guards. Then they sent us to Memphis for 3 months probation. Did that stop me? Heavens no. One day I was walking a Yankee officer down Court Square in front of Mr. Joe Shepard's store. And he noticed a common old jay bird, and he asked me if it were a rare bird. I was just teasing, of course. I said, oh, that's a very rare bird, just been blown in from the Gulf of Mexico. I was teasing, as I said, but the simpleton believed me. Now that set me to thinking. I knew that Mr. Shepard had bird cages in his store window, so I stopped by on the way home and had a little chat with Mr. Shepard. That's when we went into the rare bird business. You see, Mr. Shepherd would have little boys catch those blue jays, put them in cages, display them in his store window, and I later would have a Yankee officer walk me down there, and we would look at those birds, and I would just carry on about those beautiful rare birds. And they, those stupid Yankees, would buy them for me as a present, paying $25 a piece. Well, I'd dump that Yankee, then go by Mr. Shepherd's store, return the bird, collect my share of the money, which I gave to the Confederacy, and resell the bird. We must have sold that bird 100 times. While I was in the rare bird business, I received, oh, let me think, 16 or 17 proposals of marriage. I was once asked, how could I do that? How could I accept so many? Well, I figured if they died in battle, at least they would have died happy. I courted many men, but I never married. I lived a full and interesting life, always involved in some cause, helping my friend Annie Cook with the yellow fever victims, collecting money for orphans. I even went out to Hollywood and I got a part in a silent movie when the silent movies came in. But my fondest memories are the thrills and dangers of the spying business in Memphis. Never let the memory of those who gave their lives for that glorious cause be forgotten. Never.
Ladies and gentlemen,